G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/EntitledPeople episode. Now if you love me like I love you, then you know what to do. I want you to tackle that like button like Steve-O tackles big gnarly crocodiles. Maybe even chuck an Aussie flag down in the comments. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody entitled people. Now our first post is by user Darosk, titled, "Entitled woman doesn't like me bagging her groceries like she asked, and then tries to tell lies about me. Yay, I finally have a story to tell here. So I recently began working in my local supermarket since COVID-19 has temporarily put me out of my job. Today was my third day, and I only recently began learning the process of bagging groceries at the end of the checkout line. So, entitled parent approaches the register and tells the cashier and I that she would like us to place the cold items in the same bag. Half of her bag was cold items. We were like, okay. And so I began carefully trying to see what the best way to carefully pack her bag was while overstuffing as little as possible. After watching me work with it for about 30 seconds, she says it is okay and asks me to hand the bag over. She then looks me dead in the eyes and tells me that was the worst bagging work she had ever seen. After making eye contact with the two other employees who were witnessing this, I apologized to her and asked what she would like. She said it didn't matter and asked me to just start putting her stuff in bags and that she would fix it later. So I finished packing her groceries in her cart and told her to have a nice day, so which she said, "Yep," and she leaves. My co-workers and I all acknowledge what just happened, and we think it is over. No such luck. Apparently, when she got to her car, she discovered that I had placed a bag of bread and a sealed onion in the same bag, when I was putting all of the items in her bag for her to fix later, like she asked. Now, I learned after the fact why this might bother some people. But keep in mind, I literally just started my first ever grocery job and have no concept of many specific things like this that may annoy customers yet. And it certainly did not merit the way she reacted. I had no idea that any of the following was happening until after it was over. This lady came back into the store from her car and pulled aside one of the bakery managers, who have nothing to do with the checkout line, and ranted to him about it. He acknowledged her complaint and apologized. She then left for her car, but then it turned around and came back in to find a different manager. This time she found one of the shifts and repeated her complaints. I hadn't yet actually met this manager, but when she pointed me out, he explained that I was a new hire, to which she said that was not an excuse. Now, I still don't know for sure what she said about me, but her story apparently contained many embellishments, because the other employees who saw what happened felt the need to approach the manager and set the record straight. He had acknowledged her complaint and told her that he would talk to me. So he then approached me and told me that she had not been reacting appropriately and that she had turned something that needed a minor correction into a massive fiasco. He then introduced himself and that's how we met. Turns out he's pretty cool and we share a lot of interests. And our next post is by user Faded Platinum, titled, "Fiance's ex-wife demands stimulus money that hasn't arrived yet and is not legally entitled to receive." Some background. My fiance claims his son on his taxes as allowed by their divorce settlement, meaning child tax credits are his. He is caught up on child support and voluntarily gave her some of his tax return this year because they needed a new fridge. My future mother-in-law also provides her with financial and material support because she doesn't want her grandson to go without things that he may need. The ex-wife doesn't work and her husband gets disability. Yesterday, while at work, my fiancé received a text message from his ex-wife. Here is how it went. Entitled X, EE from here says, "Watch for our son's 500 stimulus because people are starting to get it this week." My fiancé says, "If your husband gets a stimulus, half of that 500 is mine." Note he meant half the child credit. He was going to be nice and give her some of the money. That 500 is our son's. I'm not spending it on myself. I'm spending it on son. We have a dryer we have to buy. We have crap we need to buy. You have your own money. That is son's money. You get your 1,200 stimulus. The child gets her stimulus too. You don't need son's money too. Second text from EE, And I have a car I have to fix. I don't even have a car right now. It broke down. Fiancé and I discussed pooling a portion of each of our $1,200 payments towards household needs, and using the $500 on things for his son, such as an air filter for the house because kiddo's allergies are getting worse and it's not something we can easily afford, and giving her a portion of the money. It angers me that she's demanding money she has no legal right to, instead of asking. I am not married to him yet, so I don't really have a say, but I'm hoping he won't give her a dime now. Alright, and our next post is by Mary Shelley 1, titled, "Co-worker says the way I dress makes her self-conscious." I am an essential worker. I work in a factory and I wear a uniform, but I still come in dressed how I normally dress. I love to wear skirts and decorative tights under my ripped jeans, bodysuits, crop tops, etc. I'm pretty slim and petite. So one of my co-workers is the same age as me, female 20, and she's a bit on the curvier side. She always comes in sweatpants and baggy sweaters. I've seen her outside of work before, and she does put effort into her appearance when she wants to. One day, we were changing back into our normal clothes, when I caught her staring at me. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just shrugged and walked out without saying anything. So I ordered this cute yellow plaid skirt, and since the quarantine, I haven't been able to wear it, so I decided to wear it to work. Walking in, I saw my co-worker sitting in the break room talking to some other people. I go over to the table I usually sit and start chatting with some co-workers while I put my stuff in its place. One of the guys is this man in his 40s with a daughter close to my age. He said he liked my skirt and might get one for his kid. This caught her attention and she asked why he would allow his daughter to dress like a tramp. This made people stop and stare at her. When she realized what she said, she just got up and walked out of the break room into the locker room. Upset, I followed her in and just saw her changing into her uniform. I asked her why she would say something like that, and all she said is, "I have no reason to explain myself to you." I told her, "Considering you were talking about me, I think you do." She huffed and said I'm obviously trying to get people to look at me and expect that every girl has to dress like this, that I was begging for attention, and how I made her self-conscious. First off, I don't dress for other people, I dress for myself. I basically flipped it on her by saying, well, I don't like the way you dress, because you're making people think that girls shouldn't take pride in the way they look. She says, I don't give a crap about what people think about me. Which I reply with, then why do you care so much about how I dress? Her response is, because no normal person dresses like that, you look stupid and people think you're a freak. She leaves the locker room all smug, as if she just won this fight. But because of her little outburst in the break room, people start giving her the side eye. She noticed this and now blames me for making people think she's a bad person. Sorry if the story is a little bit jumbled, it just makes me so upset thinking about it. Edit, thank you everyone for your kind words. I did talk to HR and they said since it's her first offense, all they can do is give her a written warning. Also, I get my confidence from my grandma. Alright, and our next post is by Sweet Poison 02, titled, Entitled Man Steals My Plane Seat. And just to clarify, I was flying from Schiphol, so technically not Belgium. I was flying out of, but only direct flight I could get, where I had been attending my best friend's wedding. I was very sick at the time, but I was her sole bridesmaid and witness, so I couldn't miss it. Not to mention, I was the one decorating the venue. If you want a summary of how sick I was, the girl who did my makeup for the day actually jerked her hand back when she first touched my face. I was that hot. Anyway, this story isn't about the wedding, but the flight back home to Scotland. I must have looked awful, because when I arrived early at the gate and struck up a conversation with the flight attendants, asking how their day was going, etc., while waiting to board, they ensured I got my seat first, and told me if I needed anything to call them, and they brought me a bottle of water and something to nibble on before the plane even took off. I had a window seat, which I always get. I love flying and I love looking out at the water, and I'd also paid extra legroom as I have a screwed up leg, and if it's bent into one position too long, it locks up. The plane was nearly fully boarded, and it seemed like besides me and the person in the aisle seat, no one would be in our row, which was awesome. I always liked having a seat in the room for extra room. However, sadly this was not to be, as one of the very last passengers to board was a rather drunk and, let's say, portly man. He shambled into the seat and sat down. I prepared myself for a flight next to someone who smelled like a pub while I already felt sick. The plane takes off and we're in the air, and all through the flight, the guy keeps leaning more and more into my space, clearly trying to get to see the window. I actually lean back a bit to let him see out, figuring this might be his first flight and trying to be kind, but this only seems to make it worse. Now for context, I'm a tiny woman, so I was quite literally getting crushed between this guy and the wall. I get up to go to the bathroom as my stomach finally has decided it's time to vacate. The man is quite annoyed that he has to move to let me out, but he does so with only a grumbled protest. I go to the bathroom and take care of business and then return. And what do I find? The man in my window seat with all of his stuff on the middle seat. I ask him to move back to his seat so I can sit down. He refuses and tells me it's his seat and begins to kick up a huge fuss. At this, one of the flight attendants comes over to figure out what is going on. He tells the whole story about how this is his seat and I'm trying to steal it, not knowing the flight attendant we're talking to, shout out to Kevin, was the one who had gotten me the seated in the first place. The flight attendant turned to me and, smiling, asked if I had my ticket. I'd taken my handbag with me to the bathroom as I never leave it unattended, so I was able to present it. He then read my ticket and with a crap-eating grin told the guy who'd stolen my seat that it was indeed my seat, but not to worry, he could keep it. He then turned to me and told me he had a free seat in first class and he was giving me an upgrade. So he took me to first class and I got a really nice rest of my flight. Rightio guys, our next post is by OK Flyboy, titled, "Entitled Mother Wants My Window Seat but Won't Even Ask Me For It." I didn't even plan this. So a little bit of background. Normally I travel for a living and fly to and from Canada a couple of times a month. My company uses a travel agent and with only a few exceptions, we are required to take the cheapest flight option regardless of convenience/inconvenience to ourselves. This means that while I travel often, it's with different airlines every time, which in turn means that while I have thousands and thousands of airline miles that are spread out over several airlines, and it takes me forever to reach and keep any sort of frequent flyer status with any of them, it also makes for very, very long days, with me leaving my house or hotel at 3 or 4 AM, and often getting home / to my destination at midnight, or sometimes getting my travel split across 2 days. So, this happened in March, just a few days before my company started having us work for our home for quarantine. Final leg of my flight home, I'm on an airline that I've finally managed to build up enough status to start getting possible upgrades. This is literally the first time I've been upgraded, and it's from a standard economy seat to a bulkhead window seat. As I'm boarding the plane, there is an older lady and her approximately 5-year-old grandson in the aisle and middle seat. Grandson in middle, grandma in aisle. As I'm walking up, she is telling the kid that she is going to take the window seat just as soon as they're sure no one is sitting there. I politely inform her that someone is sitting there, me, and I take my seat. She then starts telling her 5-year-old grandson about how much she wants a window seat and how sweet it would be if someone were to give up their window seat for her. I should point out that the grandson is busy playing with his iPad and clearly isn't listening at all. When I don't immediately jump up and offer her my seat, she switches tactics and starts asking the kid if he wants the window seat. How cool would it be for you to have a window seat on your first flight ever? And stuff such as that. Kid still doesn't give a crap and keeps playing with his tablet, and I again don't rise to the obvious bait. She then grabs a flight attendant and asks if there are any open window seats. Flight attendant says she's pretty sure that they're going to be a full flight, but she'll check back after boarding is done. Grandma switches back to how lovely it would be if someone would just give up their seat for her. Note, we're back to giving the seat to her. It's no longer about the kid getting the window seat for his first flight ever. At this point, I put on my headphones and ignore her. She stops trying to hint her way into my seat, and instead just starts loudly sighing every few minutes. Note, if at any point she had simply condescended to speak to me and ask me for my seat, I probably would have given it to her. But her passive-aggressive entitlement bullcrap was never going to work with me, especially after a long day of travel. Alright, an Unexposed is by Schmertopia, titled, Entitled Friend Claims Me Getting Physically Fit Makes Her Depression Worse. Hi guys, I've been a lurker in Reddit for so long, and I finally have the courage to post something. I'm 17, female, am unfit. Though I'm not fat, I'm 49 kilos. My body is not toned and firm. I admit, I do like the exercise, and so that is why I decided that I would work out. I decided to work out on late January, and I could see the little progress that I made. My friend, let's call her A, noticed it too when I posted some pictures of me working out on Facebook. A is a little on the heavier side. She's a good friend, and I've known her since 6th grade. She's always tried to exercise and have a healthier diet, but usually she gives up in a week or two. A messaged me, and here it goes. I translated the conversation we have in English. A says, "Hey, I see you're working out. Why would you do that?" "Oh, I just want to get toned, lol." "Stop it." "Stop what?" "Stop working out. You're making my depression worse." "I'm sorry, how is me working out making you depressed?" "Don't act like you don't know. Stop flaunting your body and stop exercising, you tramp. If you're really my friend, you would quit. Stop contributing to my anxiety and depression." Before I could respond, she had already blocked me. Well, okay then. So, A decided to tell our mutual friends about this, and now some of them had been calling me to just give her what she wants and to stop being so insensitive. I don't know what to do anymore. Edit 2. So I was finally able to talk to her, and she told me that she no longer wants to be friends with someone like me. I apologized that I offended her and even invited her to work out with me, but she said her words are final. I'm devastated to think that 5 years of friendship was gone. Thank you so much for your kind words, everyone. And our next post is by NT Engineer, titled, My Neighbor, the Hedge, and COVID-19. I've posted about my neighbor before, but this one shocked me. So today, in the middle of the day, I've been working at home, my old lady neighbor came over and knocked on the door. So I opened it up and talked to her briefly. She was complaining that my hedge hasn't been trimmed in a while, and she really wants it trimmed. This is the hedge on my property that she somehow thinks she has the right to tell me she wants it her way. After getting past that, this exchange took place. Just me trying to be friendly. I'm like, "So, how are you doing? You staying healthy? I saw that you were walking your dogs yesterday." "Oh, yes, I've been doing okay. I try to walk my dogs every day to keep moving. At my age, if you stop moving, it's hard to get started again. Yes, it's very good to keep moving. I did, however, have to go to the hospital this week." "Oh, are you okay?" "Yes, I went because I've been having this cough, and I don't know why, and when I went in, they decided because of my symptoms that they are testing me for the virus." "Okay then, I hope it comes back negative." Then I closed the door. Who the hell goes next door to complain about a hedge being overgrown that is not even yours if you've just been tested because you have the symptoms of COVID-19? What the literal hell? Alright, and our next post is by user Swocows, titled, No sir, I can't valet your car. I don't care if you're friends with the president of the company. Once upon a time, I was a valet for a semi-local hotel chain. My hotel in particular had multiple floors of event space, and no on-site garage. Therefore, sometimes we would have 400 people attending an event, and we could only park a handful of cars. This night was one of those nights. We had 2 large events which had already begun 2 hours ago, and for some reason people were still showing up. In arrives our entitled man. I'm busy opening a door for someone when he pulls up in our loading zone and stands outside his car talking to someone on the phone. I walk over and he just holds out his hand with his keys and continues with his conversation. I'm like, "Hi, sorry but we're full for event parking." "Ugh, then just leave it where it's at. I'm late." "Look, unfortunately that's not a spot. I can certainly direct you to the nearest parking structure." "Oh, what's one more car? Just park it." I'm sorry, but we just can't accommodate any more vehicles. It's a car. It'll fit anywhere. I'm sorry, but I don't really have room. He angrily walks back to his car, phone still in hand, then turns back towards me. Does it help that I'm friends with the president of your company? No. That I'm gonna call him and tell him that his hotel can't even valet like they're supposed to. This is unacceptable. And he huffs his way back to his car and speeds off into the sunset. Or around the block, but whatever. And I did not run into him for the rest of the night. Which was nice because I thought for sure he would come back to scream at me. He actually did call the president and told him how we couldn't valet him, in which the president laughed at him and told him to arrive earlier. Alright, and our next post was by user DivineMS_M, titled, Old Lady Gets Violent at Molewart Over One-Way Arrows in the Aisles. So this happened yesterday at a local Molewart. My daughter works in the Vision Center, and they just reopened yesterday after being shut down for a month due to what else? COVID-19. My daughter was standing near the deli section, waiting to pay for her drink, when she heard a female start screeching. She turned around and saw an elderly woman screeching at a man because the aisle she was in had a one-way arrow. She was facing the direction of the arrow, a man was at the end of the aisle grabbing something off the end cap. He was not in the aisle at all. He also had a mask on. The woman did not have a mask on. She was headed towards the end where the man was. My daughter heard the man apologize as he grabbed his item and moved away from the woman. His apology was apparently not accepted because she started grabbing items off the shelf, hurling them at this poor man, all the while screaming obscenities at him for not maintaining a 6-foot distance, etc., etc. According to my daughter, the woman was not out of the aisle yet, and had a cart between herself and the man, and if she had just stopped and waited a moment, he would have been out of her way, like coming to a stop sign and stopping, but not this elderly Karen. She threw several items at the man and one hit him in the head and down he went. Who knew old Karen had such a throwing arm? Molewart employees immediately rushed to the man's aid and someone else called for security. The man was bleeding from his head and his nose from landing on his face. The woman was now screaming at the man and the employees and was not maintaining a 6-foot distance at all. My daughter felt terrible for the man. Her break was over, so she had to go back to work, but she did see the woman led out of the store by 2 police officers about 20 minutes later. When will this madness end? Edit. My daughter just got home from work and the police visited at her work today and took her statement. One of the other employees told them where to find her. The man is pressing charges. Alright, and our next post is by user Malachisels, titled, Homeowner Uses Stupid Logic to Get Out of Paying. Stupid title. Background, my husband works for a construction company and we live in a very rural area. My brother-in-law is incarcerated. One day, my husband went to a house to do a repair. While he was there, the homeowner stated that she knew my brother-in-law many years before. She and my husband chatted about the past. He left and she texted him about how it was nice to catch up with him. Later, she called his office and refused to pay because how dare the company send my husband to her house? Didn't they know that his brother was incarcerated? My husband forwarded the text to his boss and washed his hands of the whole thing. The gall of some people amazes me. And our last post is by user LiquidFizz, titled, Entitled Old Man Tries to Force Me, a Disabled Girl, to Give Up My Seat in a Communal Area. A few years ago, I, 18 female, 15 female at the time, went on holiday with my mother, my dad, brother, aunt and uncle, and their friends, who were a couple. My aunt and uncle live far away from us, so the holiday was specially planned to spend time with them and to show their friends the brilliant parts of our country. One evening, the family decided we would walk down to this fabulous deck with a lovely view of nature and the sunset for some evening drinks. This deck also served as the waiting area for the reception of the hotel we were staying in, and as a result, had about 5 areas of seating with enough space for about 6 people at each. My brother and I decided we would walk down a little before while the adults got ready. When we got there, we picked a spot with a good view, put our stuff down and ordered some cool drinks. 10 minutes later, my uncle arrives with his wife and her friend, who immediately go to check out the curio shop. He sits down and orders a beer. It arrives, but then he gets up to look for his wife and her friend to ask what they'd like to drink. Shortly after this, a tour guide arrived with at least 20 couples on his tour. They're obviously then all waiting to be booked in. It's worth noting that his guests were all elderly, but that they were in no way unable to stand for long periods of time. With my brother and I, and the other people who were previously in the reception area, there weren't enough seats for them all. Now, I have a very visible physical disability that renders me unable to walk without a walking frame. If I even attempt to stand without it, I'll fall on my face. The tour guide walks over to me and my brother and says, while leaning on my walker, "Excuse me, but you two need to move now. My guests need to sit down here." My brother and I were a bit taken aback, and we didn't really think it was fair, considering that it's not only the reception, but also a place for social gathering, and that seats work on a first-come, first-served basis. However, because our parents always taught us to give up our seats to the elderly, I slowly start getting up. At this point, my uncle returns and says, "Excuse me, but what are you doing? We were here first." The guy replies with, "You need to respect your elders. My guests need those seats. They," referring to us, "can move. This is my business." My uncle calmly comes back with, "Sorry, but I don't know if you've realized that she's disabled and can't stand for long periods of time. Who are you to tell her to move? We won't be moving." The guy calls my uncle an asshole and tells him to show some respect, but he goes away huffing. Not even 10 seconds later, people in his tour come up to my uncle and say, "Well done for standing your ground. We're so sorry for his behavior, it's embarrassing." The guy comes back later to try to give my uncle an inadequate apology, which my uncle accepts, but says to him, "Considering that your guests told me themselves that your behavior is embarrassing, I think you need to rethink your business skills." He walked away red and avoided us the whole evening. We had a lovely dinner. Alright guys, that's the end of my r/EntitledPeople episode for today. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. As always, this has been Markee. I hope you have a good night, day, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!